It's dark on this broken, powerful evening. Well, today we'll talk about that very insulting letter that Zelensky sent to Putin, and it turned out there are a lot of interesting reasons why and for what purpose he sent it, and after that it turns out someone even went to meet him. Remember, Putin said at the conference at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum that a certain major businessman from Russia went to Zelensky, called Putin, and told him that he had gone to Zelensky and talked to him about something. In short, it turned out that this businessman is Abramovich, and it's said that Zelensky agreed to meet only with him in Kyiv, and that's why he went to Kyiv and brought a message from Kyiv to Putin. Moreover, he has been acting as a mediator between Kyiv and Moscow since the beginning of the Great War, and at the same time he is a trusted confidant of Putin. On top of that, and most likely, he is also a trusted confidant of Kyiv. He is needed. Because, according to the Financial Times, Abramovich is the only Russian they are willing to tolerate. He gets along with everyone. And for some reason, Zelensky suddenly believes, according to what Abramovich said after meeting not with him, that he can solve everything thanks to the magic of his personal charisma. At the entire leaders' meeting, meaning the meeting between Putin and Zelensky. Do you remember how Zelensky's charisma worked during his meeting with Trump, which I talked about back in January when he was kicked out of the White House? And apparently Zelensky wanted to use that same charisma at the meeting with Putin, right? But things didn't quite go the way he expected. The businessman says Zelensky compares his actions or current events to the KVN team captain contest where he once competed. Капитаном в КВН, где Зеленский... He was a star even before entering show business and politics, but Putin isn't interested in that at all. And it didn't work on Trump either, but Zelensky is completely fixated on it. By the way, many people say that Zelensky is more than confident in his own charisma. I read about it before and now people are saying it again. But somehow this strange charisma didn't help him win the war or achieve a truce or anything like that. Although Ursula von der Leyen and the head of European diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, gladly allocated 90 billion euros. Maybe there really is something to it after all. Such money isn't allocated for nothing. But is charisma the main thing here? That's the question, of course. Moreover, two high-ranking Ukrainian officials said that Zelensky's proposal for a meeting, which was passed through Abramovich in May, resembled an open letter to Putin. It was published on the evening of June 4, but it was less hostile, and the office of the President of Ukraine declined to comment. Putin himself spoke about a certain Russian businessman who went to Kyiv to see Zelensky, as I mentioned, during the plenary session of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Putin made the following statement. It was, in my opinion, on May 21 and on May 22, Ukrainian forces carried out a terrible terrorist attack on a college dormitory in the Luhansk People's Republic, where children and teenagers were killed. He said he asked the businessman what it meant, and the businessman replied he had no explanation but would call Zelensky, or Zelensky would call him, and it would be clarified. But nothing was explained, and that was the end of it. Well, and then on June 4, that document was handed over, if you can even call it that, a very insulting one. After which Putin said that there was no point in meeting with Zelensky. And it seems that he achieved his own kind of peace, no truce, nobody wants to meet with anyone. After that, Zelensky started saying that if we can't achieve our goals one way, we'll achieve them another. And here's what started. In Crimea, an oil depot and a sea terminal were attacked. Details of the night strike have been revealed. It turned out that on the night of June, 7 units called Middle Strike struck. Special Operations Strike. Why write it? Again, it's in English, I don't understand. Well, basically drone operators. The Semikhaladizianskaya oil depot and the sea oil terminal in Crimea. This very oil depot is located in the village of Yedikuy. Sorry if I pronounced it wrong, it's called Lenina. It's about 200 kilometers from the front line. It is used as a transshipment point for storing and transporting fuel oil, diesel fuel and bitumen. There were several facilities and tanks at the site. That's where the tankers are loaded. They deliver all sorts of things for the enemy's army across Crimea. Plus, the second target was the Feodosia marine oil terminal. There are 7 fuel tanks there, with capacities of 10,000 and 20,000 cubic meters. Since it was attacked, there is no fuel there now. But here we also have footage of that very attack. These are exactly the tanks, the reservoirs, that the drones crashed into. Apparently more than one was attacked, but naturally if one explodes, all of it spills out and burns around it. That's why here you see this one is already burning and smoking. Another one is burning and smoking too. It's basically like a shooting gallery here. They had I don't know where the protection was or if there was any at all, but something like this would happen. Alright, moving on. Next, the Ukrainian armed forces also struck a bridge on the border with Crimea, continuing the very strategy of blockading Crimea that I talked about in one of my videos. Now they struck a bridge near Chongar on the border with Crimea, and traffic through the Jankoy checkpoint is temporarily blocked. This was stated by Sal Saldo, who reported the following. As a result, starting from the drone attack, the bridge deck in the area of the settlement of Chongar was damaged for safety reasons. Traffic through this checkpoint is temporarily closed. Well, some acquaintances of mine who have relatives in Crimea also told me that there's a huge problem there. I asked the commenters, the viewers of my channel, in the comments. Huge thanks to those who provided objective information. Some people said that in certain areas of Crimea things are a bit better, while in others things are a bit worse. But I was told that in small towns, cities in Crimea, in some of them there aren't even groceries. It's not that people are starving, well, for example, sugar. There's a major shortage. If cars are on the streets, it's clear they're either officials or their associates. So I'm passing on the words of acquaintances. Huge thanks to those who shared this. It was extremely interesting to hear. So, the blockade of Crimea, whatever it may be, well, the armed forces of Ukraine have achieved success here. Why is this being done? According to what I've read from military analysts, it's being done in order to bleed this territory dry, economically speaking, to reduce fuel reserves, and accordingly, if there are no reinforcements or equipment supplies coming from the mainland, then they're either planning to attack now or later. But there is a possibility of a military attack on Crimea from the Ukrainian side. By the way, this was mentioned by that very Strelkov Gherkin, who at one time was in Slavyansk, or, as people corrected me in the comments, Slavyansk. There was some debate about that. And there was a debate among the commenters about how to properly name the city. And as a result, that's how all of this started. So, whether to believe it or not, I don't even know, but overall it does make sense. Write in the comments what you think about this. Crimea is really in danger right now, at least economically. And regardless of whether there will be an attack or not, there are huge logistical difficulties there. The land route is currently being blocked by drones. And there, in general, it has come to the point where apparently several hundred trucks have already been attacked. Someone is standing somewhere hiding, they can't get through. And the traffic on the Crimean bridge isn't very active right now either. At least that's what's available in public sources. Next, in the LNR, they also banned passenger transportation by land to Crimea, so that's also a huge problem. The land corridor has been closed for passenger transportation. The authorities of that region made this decision. In the Lugansk region, the AFU regularly attack Russian supply lines on this route, so the logistics are under great threat. Both regular and private passenger transportation on the Novorossiya highway, which leads from Rostov-on-Don to Crimea, are prohibited. The ban came into effect on the night of Saturday, June 6, as reported by the Ministry of Transport of the LPR, citing the head of the region. In addition, the ban on passenger transportation has also been introduced on sections of the federal highway R150 Takois, Belgorod, Starobelsk, Luhansk, Donetsk, Mariupol. In general, on the section from the 518th to the 32nd kilometer and suburban train service has been suspended. This ban does not apply to private car drivers, but they are also not recommended to travel on these routes. These are the difficulties. Again, write in the comments whether you confirm this or not. It's interesting. And in one of the videos I'll also gather opinions, as I said, and share them. Naturally, all of this is anonymous on YouTube, all of this is allowed, so I think there are no problems. Next, the war is still ongoing, of course, not only in the direction of Russia, but also in the direction of Ukraine. Attacks are carried out not only by the Ukrainian armed forces, but also by the Russian armed forces. For example, an attack on Russia. There was a Russian attack in Zaporizhzhia. And right now, there are also big problems in Zaporizhzhia, because one of the districts of this huge city was left partially without electricity. Reported by military administration head Ivan Fedorov, authorities had warned of a Russian aerial bomb threat, which was confirmed. As a result of the strike on the night of June 7, a fire broke out. Emergency services were sent to the scene at that time, and because of the attack, one of the districts was left without electricity. Throughout the night, the authorities warned about the threat of guided aerial bombs and ballistic missile strikes on the Zaporizhzhia region. In Kyiv, at least 2. That same night, there was an alert because of a drone. Something is burning right here. This is clearly an unfinished house. But it seems it has already been attacked as well. Drones were detected flying from the Chernihiv region towards the Kyiv region. Brovary. In addition, drones were heading toward Kyiv from the east. At 5 a.m. local time, the alert was in effect in the Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, and Zaporizhzhia regions. What were they talking about? The relevant services are in place. Meanwhile, an advisor to the Ukrainian Minister of Defense said that Moscow is striking transportation links between Kharkiv and Sumy. This is being done to weaken the Ukrainian army. What else? Ukraine also stated that a Russian drone attacked a spent nuclear fuel storage facility in Chernobyl. Why is Russia doing this? It's absolutely impossible to understand. But here's the thing. The Ukrainian company Energoatom says that on the night of June 7, a Russian drone hit the building of the centralized spent nuclear fuel storage facility in Chernobyl. As a result, the container reception building was partially destroyed. There was no spent nuclear fuel stored in it, but a fire broke out covering an area of 40 square meters. The fire was extinguished. There are no problems. The radiation levels at the facility remain within normal limits. And finally, Zelensky, what about him? Zelensky is visiting the United Kingdom. Why? Well, let's take a look. Here is Zelensky's excellent visit to the United Kingdom. Here is our TV for the video, and here is Zelensky himself. The powerful leader steps down, and here he is greeted by practically everyone, including the pilot of the plane itself and some 2 guys who greet Zelensky and direct him to meet with whom? That Otto Sommer, of course, Macron, and also Starmer. The negotiations will be, as always, I think, powerful, unbreakable, strong. And the decisions made there will be carved in stone and then gilded. Because this is a decision on the level of do what you should, don't do what you shouldn't, war is bad, peace is good, black is not white, and white is not black. Well, such statements are always the result of negotiations between these powerful leaders. Why are they held except maybe to see each other and again to talk about those difficulties that we all know about? I don't know, but somehow, yes, they do all that. And again, taxpayers' money is being spent simply because, well, why shouldn't a few people meet just to have a good time? Maybe somewhere else they'll also build houses together, like these ones, so that there isn't just a corporation or a dynasty, but also this coalition of those who want to join. With the residents somewhere in Panama, or maybe they'll build themselves villas there too. And after this is all settled here someday, yes, they'll step back and everything will be based on mutual respect, calmness, and sharing drinks together far away from politics. People arrange their lives as best they can. That's not us. There are a lot more opportunities there. So what? And the leaders are of a different kind now. Let's take a look at them too, because neither morning nor evening can do without them. Is there anyone here? Who should we look at first? Let's choose now. Well, for example, there's someone like that. Yes, like these. Shvaika, a very fortunate coincidence of first and last name. Igor Shvaika is telling us where. A very interesting video. Here, Shvaika is telling how everything is wonderful at the front, how everything is going well there, and everyone can go as cooks and drivers, and the journalist slyly asks him, but where if now everyone can go as cooks, clerks, economists, singers? Then where did the previous ones go? 2 cadres, if assault troops are not needed by anyone and suddenly only drivers are needed, yes.
Bus driver, you will be a driver, you will be a cook, you will be a clerk, whatever was civilian. Won't we get to the point where everyone goes into the army as a driver, cook, clerk, barber, and then who will go to the infantry?
That's a question that hits the nail on the head. Shvaika even froze, thinking, damn, my God, that's a question that wasn't planned for in the telethon.
What should I say? Where did the previous cooks and drivers go? Did they join the infantry?
But these? You choose. There are 3 options on the side. The rehearsed phrase makes Shvaika stand out well. It's like the bird Gavaron in the movie about Alice, and really you make a choice. With your mind and wit. Well, here it's negative mind and wit, but they really make Shvaika stand out. So Shvaika is doing great. We also have this, General Umelchenko, former head of the SBU, who for some reason took down the Ukrainian flag from the wall, and before that he had it upside down. And now he's telling bad things about Trump. But obviously, the retired old man knows Trump well, apparently communicates with him personally and explains what's what, so Dasha happily conducts the interview.
China is an accomplice on Russia's side. And Ukraine is a donor for Trump, just as I am an opponent of the military great Neputin.
Yeah, now the old man is calling Trump an accomplice in all sorts of war crimes.
And now, attention. And here it is.
Attention.
Where there is truth, where there is goodness, where there is justice, where it is right, that's where Ukraine stands. And who is against Ukraine? Russia, Belarus, China, North Korea, Iran. And on the side next to it, the United States, Ukraine. And who is against Ukraine? Russia, Belarus, China, North Korea, Iran. And on the side next to it, the United States of America. On the side next to it, the United States of America.
Aha, so now even the US is against Ukraine. Well, I think that's just wonderful. But on the side of the world, Ukraine is supported with the pacification of the population, with economic problems, with these thousands of talking heads who tell how everything is great in Ukraine. That's goodness, really. They're spreading it to the masses. And then when they throw it in the faces of those who listen to all this, you just can't wash off all that goodness and light. It smells so much like goodness that it's just, oh.
Dasha, if you were my host, I'd show you.
What's this? What's this? What's going on? Dasha is happy, you know, she's about 30 years old and this ex-general is, I don't know, probably 90 already. What is he planning to show her and why? There are a lot of questions here.
We teach Ukraine's enemies what can be shown, but I won't do it in your presence. Thank you.
Yes, Ukrainian television, of course, is at a very high level right now. And here's another fighter. Look, the girl just got out of the trench. And now, as always, in an exhausted state, she says that Russia needs to be hit. Well, apparently she and this journalist are the first ones willing to go to the front to some tree line to go assault someone with that old man from before and show the results on camera.
We, on our part, will keep up the pressure at the front.
I can imagine how she's going to keep up the pressure and with what and what's even going on. So,
here are Russian targets to strike them. But with what?
What are we going to strike with? With beauty, intelligence, resourcefulness, shells, what? With what?
And maybe this will allow us to show Russia that it needs to stop. This will not be the end of the war.
No, it won't be. We'll keep hitting, but it won't be the end of the war. The guy on the left even tensed up, thinking, I don't want to do the hitting, let her do it.
And then the guy won't hit, and none of the planets either, like Joan of Arc.
There will be fighter Russia with this, with a banner, a sword at the side, charging at the enemy and tearing into his body with bare teeth. The journalist fell asleep at this point. They were fighting.
And we're waiting for another episode like that.
This is called quality something. What kind of episode will she be waiting for? How long will she wait? What is this scenario? We had some kind of plan and we stuck to it. But I'll surprise you, and now, besides all of this, I'll bring back Dikic because Dikic hasn't been around for a long time. It was hard for me to squeeze him into the TV this time because it gets harder every time. But let's listen to what this Gromozeka has to say. Our principle is that Gromozeka tells the story.
I see. The Ukrainian unmanned systems forces have found that we don't know how to be effective in our own families. It's not the only one, but it's one of the important key reasons why right now by the way, it's already time to acknowledge this.
The power goggles are very interesting, but nothing is clear. It's hard to understand what Daika is telling us and why he's sitting in a barrel. The sound is like it's coming from a barrel, or maybe from somewhere else, but since we're a cultured channel, we mention a barrel and not the place we're not supposed to mention.
We have now seized the initiative, and very slowly, but we are starting to win this game.
Subtitles. Yeah, Daika's going to win the war, got it. Our Fab 3000 PRO Max Ultra Mega is already winning the war. He is obviously sitting somewhere in an office, either in the Arctic or in the Antarctic. I'm not joking, he's actually the head of a base in the Antarctic that was once given to Ukraine by the British. And now this base is a scientific one. Real scientific experiments are conducted there. And Dicky is in charge of it. Why? Because he is an environmental scientist. And at the same time, he's also a political scientist, an overeating expert, a restaurant goer, in other words, a restaurateur, let's say, but not the kind who owns a restaurant, more like someone who helps keep them running. A climatologist, a military expert, and a destructive Kyiv Pro Max, the secret weapon of Ukraine. And by the way, he used to be someone from Adar. Sometimes he says he was almost an admiral of a land-based icebreaker or something like that. Then there are explosions. He claimed to be the commander of all of Azov, but it turned out he wasn't. In general, it's hard to get honesty or clarity about what happened at the front when he was there in 2014 for a whole 2 weeks. Then something happened and Diku was let go. Now he's a hero who goes around telling people how to fight, and at the same time he also runs a scientific station in Antarctica. So what? That's all. Goodbye everyone, to the hero.
Europe needs Ukraine to keep fighting. Because the longer Ukraine fights, the more time Europe has to at least do something about the new security architecture. So when people ask me, when will the war end? I say, listen, we've been given money for 2 years of war. So let's not fool ourselves with any additional illusions.